Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican and a Redneck Father the World. We are your hosts and surrogate fathers, Juan and Ben. Today we'll be discussing why you can't change people.
Because I'm as free as a bird now, and this bird you cannot change. Woo! Just quoted Free Bird by Leonard Skinner from the Pronounced album. Don't remember when it was released or who did it, but I've basically reached my highest level of greatness.
Are we going to get hit with copyrights for this?
I hope not, because I don't know if the Leonard Skinner dynasty reaches out and touches you in any way. It's like the king has come down from his throne and said, "Hey, I'm here," and you're like, "Oh, the king touched me." so I hope not. If so, we'll just pull this one and there'll just be a weird blank spot. I hope not. I love you, Leonard Skinner. You're amazing. Y'all are amazing.
Anyways. So why can't you change people, Ben? Why can't I just make you do what I want you to do and you be happy because I'm going to be happy?
I like the way you said that. Well, you can't. And there's so many good books, movies, stories, whatever about this. It is a long-standing principle. No matter how much we want to accept it, you can't. You can't. My 8-year-old read this morning while I was getting ready to come over here. And she was like, that's so true. You can't change people. I'm like, you're 8 and you get it. And it's a sad reality, but if you accept it, it makes it easier to move through life. Now, you can influence people. You can guide people. You can tell them what to do all day. And they can accept it and choose to make changes for themselves. They can make the change all day, but it's kind of a fool's errand to say that I changed them. You can say I influenced them to change, but anyone who's ever known someone with a drug addiction knows that they have to make the choice to stop doing the drugs.
Yeah.
Anyone who has tried to influence anyone in any way has to accept, after a while you realize, I can't change them. And it's not to say to stop trying to influence, especially if you have good influence, continue trying to influence them for the good.
Yeah, and you see that quite a bit. And I remember even as a kid, sometimes you would hang out with a friend because you felt bad for them, but then it was like, man, if I can just change them, help them out. Mm-hmm. And you're doing it with good intentions, but then it's like you end up becoming more like that friend instead of you changing that person for the good, then that person ends up changing you for the bad.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, when your parents say, it's like, don't hang out with those kids, they're going to ruin you. It's like, no, they're not. I can handle it. Like, can you?
Yeah.
Can you? Because, trying to change a person, man, that's a full-time job.
It is. And there's so many routes we could go with this conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the field right now. Which direction are we going to go, like we talked about before? But one thing I really see it is relationships between, you have the guy and the girl, and the guy's like, oh, I can change her. I know she's wild and free right now, but I'm going to tame her. I've heard that before. And it's like, are you really going to tame her, or are you just going to suppress that girl, or vice versa?
Yeah.
The woman's like, oh, well, he's wild and free, but I'm going to change him. And they spend years of their lives trying to change this dude. And they realize, oh.
Yeah. I've seen it in the end where a woman tries to change a man, and then the result of that is just a neutered man.
A neutered, yeah.
Yeah. I just see this shriveled up ball sack that's just there, but it's completely useless.
She keeps them in a jar next to the bed.
Yeah.
And she pulls them out when she needs them.
Yeah, but then, by the time you pull them out, they're so useless, they're like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to fight this guy?
Like,
I'm not going to stand up to somebody. Are
you
kidding me?
Yeah.
I've been cowering to you for 20 years. Why would I stand up to them?
That is so sad.
And the sad reality is you might change him to get who you think he wants to be, or she who you think she, wants to be, however it be, man, woman, whatever. But you change them, and the sad reality is there was something about them initially that you were attracted to. It wasn't just a pretty face. I mean, there's pretty people everywhere. But there was something initially about who they are specifically different from everyone else that you had seen up until that point in your life, where you're like, oh, that person, I'm drawn to them. And then you meet them, you're like, well, wait a second. They're challenging me in some way. And now that's scary. Or there's something about them I don't like, but I like this other thing about them more. And so I'm going to try and change them. And what happens over 20 years or however long, 10 years or whatever, you change that person the way you think they should be, and that thing that initially attracted you is gone. And now you're just like, I'm not as attracted to them anymore. And now you're that nagging person or that whining person that's driving them crazy. And it's like, well, I did everything you said. I'm exactly what you wanted. Why are you, what more can I do? My clothes look different. My music's different. My behaviors are different. I drive a different vehicle. I work at this job. You live where you got everything you wanted.
Going back to shriveled ball sack. Right
That's
there.
it. That's it. It's like, I don't know what more I can do. And she's like, it's not there. And then there's some other thing. And it's like, man, you like that thing about him the first time. That's the thing you should focus on. Or maybe that was too much for you and you need to accept defeat and go, maybe that wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
And you need to back up.
And even too from the guy changing the woman. I've seen it to where the woman becomes this frail, weak, just kind of scared, timid little thing, and it's sad. It's sad to see that because it's like you have this guy who's just being overpowering and overbearing because he's stronger than her. Yeah. So he just breaks her will, and it's funny, man. My dad breaks horses in for a living. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. And it was man, he had this great saying, dude. It was like he would get mad at the horses and be like, "It's God and man, not man and horse," and he would just punch him in the face. And
how does that sound in Spanish? I want authenticity.
Dios y hombre, no Dios y caballo. I love it. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I love quoting that thing. I was just like, yes.
God and man, not God and horse.
But it's like...
That's going to be on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's got to happen.
The horse's eyes would just widen up. I remember seeing this many times. The horse's eyes would just widen up. And it'd be like, they would just be broken. And it'd just be like this broken, thing. And here you have this 2,000-pound animal, strong, just beautiful strength, and it's just broken by a man. By 100. My dad's a big guy. He's a. I don't want to mess with him.
But most horses could kill most people.
Yeah,
easily.
But it's like, it's funny. Like you have that brokenness. But I saw this, it's like if the point of that was if my dad's goal was just to completely just break that horse would die.
Oh, yeah.
But the point of that was he broke that horse, but then the horse and my dad start working together. And it becomes this beautiful, powerful unit.
Yeah.
So, and there's a difference between like trying to change somebody, like, no, I'm going to break you, and I'm going to continue to break you. Versus like, I'm exposing some truth in you. You may not want to hear this, and it happens. So don't, what I'm saying out there to the guys out there, you may feel like your wife is trying to change you, but in reality, she may just be exposing some truth to you. Yeah. And you're feeling broken at that moment. But then what's the end result? Is it because she's actually trying to help you and work with you, or is she just wants to keep you broken so that you'll submit to her? So there's a fine line between trying to change somebody and trying to help somebody.
Sure.
And you got to look at the motives. It's like, the motive for my dad, he wanted to be able to guide that horse without that horse killing him.
Yes.
Because he knew, like, if I don't break this horse, he's going to kill me. So, and it might be.
Then a horse has so much to offer to man as well.
Yeah.
Not just the beauty, but
yeah, the strength. Like
the strength.
We've built nations upon the backs of horses, like the Roman Empire. I mean, they were very successful because of the horse.
Absolutely.
Anyways, going back to like so
smart.
That's something that I kind of like want to throw out there. The goal is to not be involved. Like, oh well, I'm just trying to change this person, so I'm not going to get involved. There is some confrontation that has to happen in a relationship.
Oh yeah.
But then there's a fine line between like, am I going to spend my marriage? Am I going to spend but this time with this relationship, just trying to change this person,
Mm-hmm.
or am I actually just trying to work with this person?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Because there's a difference between control and boundaries, too.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of talking about that a little bit as well. It's like, well, okay, this is a boundary for me. Please don't cross it. I can only go this far right now in our relationship, whatever. And that's fine. And that control and working together. I mean, this is a big subject. I'm definitely in well over my head on this one. I was hesitant to do it,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a good point. But you can't change people. And I mean, I've seen it personally with my mother and my father. There are some bad habits my dad had that ultimately, led to the divorce of my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he unfortunately had a substance abuse issue that led to their divorce. And my mom, as much as she tried, there's nothing she could do about it. So she did the best she could. My mom's an amazing person and raised us well, and my dad had his input and raised us to the best of his abilities as well. But in the end, he didn't make that choice to make that thing change. And
So how do you go about determining whether, and if you're in a relationship, like, hey, am I in this relationship because I'm trying to change this person, or am I in the relationship because they're trying to change me? Like, how do you define that? What are some tell signs of that? Like, if you're in a relationship, like, oh yeah, this person's just trying to change me.
I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I can't take you that far.
I'm a redneck, not a psychologist.
I thought we stated it was a Mexican and a redneck. I mean, look at your surroundings. Do you feel empowered when you're with that person? That's a good start, right? Like when I get around, if I'm a man and I'm dating a woman, or I'm married to a woman, in my case, I'm married. If I feel like my wife is just, do this, do that, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, why is she saying that? Is she trying to change me for just whatever she wants? Or is she saying, hey, why don't you go out and get that degree you've always talked about? Why don't you go out and apply for that job? Well, you're talking about being fat all the time, honey. Why don't you go exercise? Like, you're talking about being fat. Maybe you need to exercise, and is she trying to make me go, hey, I hear what you're saying, I'm trying to help you and influence you to change for the better? Or is she going, do this, do that, rah, rah,
Well, I think we see that, like, so with some friends and some situations, and you see it in society all the time, where like you have that spouse, or you see that relationship where that person is they're just obviously being controlled and told what to do.
Oh yeah.
And even from like kids' perspective, when you find yourself just trying to control your kids, there's anger, there's frustration from both sides, and it's because I find myself every now and then trying to control my kids, and I realize, like, oh wait, you're your own person, and you have genius level intelligence. This is something that I realize, and it maybe a lot of people out there don't realize. You're dealing with a very smart individual when you're trying to control something. You're not dealing with the horse. You're not dealing with the animal. You're dealing with a person who has genius level capacities, meaning they can think for themselves.
Oh yeah.
And that person might allow you to control them for a period of time, but then something bad might happen. I don't know. It's just I'm going down some rabbit holes. So
this was a hard subject. I thought we had pinpointed it. But yeah, you can't change people, and kids, you're between birth and I think 7 or 8 is when they stop developing heavily. That's when you can influence them the most. They still are who they are, but you can guide them and you can lead them, and that's kind of the best you can do.
Let's tie back to like man and woman.
Okay.
As far as like why you don't want to change a man and why you don't want to change the woman. Like, a man's role, there's clear defined roles for a man, regardless of what society says, and there's clear and defined roles for a woman, regardless of what society says. We may try to change each other and be like, well, no, you need to be more sensitive. Well, men are sensitive in a way, but our sensitivity is different than what a woman would be.
Sure.
Like when my son gets hurt, I'm going to look at him and I'm going to check, are you okay? Is there any blood? But my emotional demeanor is going to be like calm, collected. I'm not going to get emotional and be like, oh, poor baby. And like, if he wants a hug, I'll give him a hug.
Sure.
But then I'm going to tell him, all right, quit crying, man up, let's go on. A girl is like, oh, let's, cuddle, baby you. Like, that's what the mom's role is, which is funny because whenever you're with your kids, I'm sure you experience it. If they're with you, they get hurt. They look at you. Is he going to acknowledge me? No. Okay, I'm okay. I'm good. Oh, mom's here. Oh, yes, I'll get a lollipop out of this.
At our house, we don't practice acknowledging you when you fall down. When you fall down, we might look at you, but now they look to see if we're looking, so we actually just don't. We kind of like glance, like, okay, there's no blood, and we're like, are they crying? No, they're not crying. Let's just see what happens next.
So, the goal between a man and a woman, it shouldn't be like, oh, you need to be more like me. The encouragement should be like, no, you need to be more like who you're called to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way. How are you guiding that person to be who they should be? Anyways, with that said, thank you for listening to a Mexican redneck follow the world. We love you and we're proud of you. Free bird!